All right, so I mentioned a creative constitution, what I'm sort of rules that I set for myself when I'm going into creating these stage shows or these scripts, these playlists for the Dresden Files. Um, so first of all, I am trying to go with a kind of a more of an 80s rock and roll vibe, but I'm looking at stuff from the 70s. I'm looking at stuff from the 90s, the 2000s. I'm looking at predominantly rock and roll, rock songs, heavy metal songs. Bands like obviously Queen, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Motley Crue, all those kinds of bands, Poison, what have you. But also contemporary bands, contemporary pop artists, anything that kind of pops up, because there's some pop artists that I find that I like. I like Lady Gaga. I like Katy Perry. I like those. I've discovered that, hey, their songs are a lot of fun. Those are cool. I like this song, but then I'll also look for covers of songs to sort of more go with the dynamic of the scene that I'm working on, and I'm discovering new bands that way. It's a lot of fun. I've discovered some really cool stuff that way. But every track must possess a hard edge sound. The production prioritizes these high concept, operatic, theatrical style, dramatic vocal performances. It's the kind of music that I really enjoy. Being a big fan of Queen, they're very theatrical, very, Freddie Mercury was a god. Fantastic stuff. Like I said, primary genres are going to be 80s rock, theatrical pop, progressive, technical metal rock, those sorts of things. With key influences being Queen, Whitesnake, Iron Maiden, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, etc. Standard pop tracks must be real-world recordings, reimagined with heavy distortion or driving percussion, aggressive energy. In other words, these have to be songs I can actually find, whether on YouTube or Spotify or YouTube Music, or Deezer, or wherever. Trying to track that music down so I can get it on the playlists and be able to listen to it and hear it and discover it. So whenever I get suggestions from Gemini, or from other people, as far as songs that would work for a scene, I'm going to listen to each one, and if I'm not familiar with it, which is quite a lot of songs, and pick one that I really like. And sometimes I'll listen to them and be like, I don't like really any of these work, and I'll get another 5. So that brings me to my procedural stuff. I have a 5-5 rule. Every narrative beat or scene proposal must be presented with 5 unique options. Each one of the options must be from a different band or artists. No duplicate artists are permitted within a single selection set. I also have a sort of a gender matching update, matching mandate to ensure character consistency. The gender of the performer in the stage production must match the gender of the singer. So if it's a song that, say, Murphy is singing within the context of the story, then I want to have a song on the track. I want to have a track that is a female artist that is doing the song, whether the original was done by a man or not. That's what I want, just to sort of help visualize and get that stuff going. I've discovered some awesome artists that way, and I really dig women who rock and kick ass. So Joan Jett, Rain Paris, Cassandra Carson, Lizzie, Pink. I've discovered that these women who are just awesome, kick all kinds of ass and are rock, just absolutely rock. I have a couple bands that I'm going to completely exclude from it simply because it's bands that I don't like. So in the end, these are playlists that I am making for me. Anyone is you're more than welcome to take these and do with it what you will. You're more than welcome to ignore them as whatever. But there are 3 bands that I have so far found that I'm really not a fan of, that I just don't like anything of theirs. One is Megadeth, and really it goes into any kind of heavy metal where it's just screaming into a microphone. Like, I'm not a big fan of, I like walls of sound, I like that, but I also like to have very distinct vocals that I can differentiate and pull out of the song that I can hear. Megadeth and there are a lot of other bands which is just guttural screaming into a microphone. Not a fan of that stuff. If I hear that, I'm like, immediately no. And pretty much everything of Megadeth's I've heard is that. No offense to any Megadeth fans out there, it's just not my jam. The next two are going to be kind of controversial because they're very popular. People think they're classics. They're great. We'll start with the first one, the Rolling Stones. I have nothing against the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger, any of that stuff, but I'm just not a fan of their sound. They have done some great songs, and I recognize their impact on music. They are, without a doubt, one of the most influential bands in history. And I'm not in any way taking a dump on them. The Rolling Stones, just the sound is not for me. Don't like it. But I do like some of their songs, so I am allowing and looking for maybe covers of their songs from bands that I do like their sound. And that happened. You know, I found a really cool version of Gimme Shelter that way. I discovered that there are songs out there that I've really liked where I don't like the original, but I do like the cover. You know, it's like I really like, I have nothing against the Beatles. I think Beatles are just fine. But I really like, say, Aerosmith's cover of Come Together is really good. Things like that. The last band that is on the forbidden list for me is Pink Floyd. I just do not like their songs. I don't like covers of their songs. I just don't like the band. That's it. It's a personal preference thing. So you're not going to find any Pink Floyd on any of these playlists. Just so you know, don't be looking for them. They came up as suggestions. I was like, nah dog. I'm not interested in that. But professional covers of these artists' songs, except with the exception of Pink Floyd, are not blacklisted. They're not forbidden, anything like that. But those are three bands specifically that I have identified that I'm not a big fan of and don't want to hear any of their stuff. There are, of course, other bands, a lot smaller, but these are kind of the big omissions that you'll see on here, on these lists. Like I said, there's the reality mandate. These have to be actual songs that have actual covers. So I mean, if I use "Come Together" and I think Aerosmith's works the best, I got to use Aerosmith's version. There has to be an actual version of it. It can't be here's this song, but we want a hard rock interpretation of it. But one doesn't exist. No band's ever done it. Then I'm not going to use it. I'm going to use something I can actually find, listen to, let it get into your ears. Tracks must act as functional constraints of the story. No primary track may be repeated across different books in the series. That's what I'm going for. So each song must be 100% unique. I'm not going to reuse tracks. If it makes sense, maybe. But right now I'm setting out to not reuse tracks. So if a track appears in Stormfront, it is not going to appear in any of the other stuff, which is going to force me to listen to a lot of new stuff. That's the main reason I'm doing this. This project is a standalone. It's location agnostic. I'm not tying this to any specific geographical regional location, meaning it's not like I'm using Chicago bands or Kansas City bands or anything like that. I'm looking all over the place for this stuff. That is kind of the creative constitution of how I am going about this. I am using AI, like I said, to analyze the text of the book, break it down into scenes, give me sort of what the narrative of the song or the narrative of the scene is, pick a song and pick performers for each scene, and I'll release a sort of an explanation each time, sort of in the description of all that stuff, and as we go along. I'm finding as I'm developing these playlists are generally coming in between 22 to 26 songs a piece, coming out with a runtime of about 2 hours, an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours, around that. That's about where I'm going for. 3-act structure as we go along, and that is kind of the creative direction I am going with the project. Thank you so much for listening to me yammer on. Comment, do your thing. Love you guys.